Welcome, friends, to tonight's program in remembrance of Yom Hashoah, in memory of the 6 million who perished during the Holocaust. And by the size of this crowd, it demonstrates that you care. I would like to begin by calling Don Hafrichter to lead us in the national anthem and Hatikva. Please rise. Six million names, 6 million faces, 6 million voices, 6 million stories. We may carry their names, but we don't know their faces. We don't know their voices, and we don't know their stories. They have all been lost. On this day of remembrance, we take time to remember their pain, their suffering, and tears. We solemnly memorialize the 6 million of our mishpacha brutally murdered just for being Jewish. Today, in 2023, we can no longer depend on the survivors to tell the stories of the Shoah. The responsibility for remembering the Holocaust and all of its related history falls upon all of us. Remember, Zohar. We remember the victims of the greatest crime of mankind. We remember when cries reached out for help, but the world was deaf. We know that while we do not have the ability to bring back their faces, nor their voices or stories, we must remember their past, our past, so that all their suffering will not have been in vain. 85 years later, we continue to utter the mandate, never again. But let us not bury our heads in the sand. All over the world and in our society today, whether from the extreme left or extreme right, anti-Semitism is thriving. Even right here, where we enjoy life to its fullest, books on the Holocaust are being banned. The Holocaust teaches that hatred can easily infect a society when people of conscience choose to remain silent. All of us that are here today are here because we feel a responsibility, a compassion and duty to pay homage to the 6 million. We say Kaddish and remember, Zohar. But have we instilled this responsibility to our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren? It is their responsibility to tell our history. We must transfer this duty to our future generations. We cannot rely on schools, teachers, or books, not while we still have the ability to relate the tragedy of our ancestors and how they perished. We must teach them to be our voices when our voices have faded. To end with a quote by Elie Wiesel, we must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Zohar, 6 million names, 6 million faces, 6 million voices, 6 million stories. We will never forget. Don Hofrichter will now recite Kaddish. If you are a survivor or a second or third generation, please come up to the podium and recite Kaddish with Don. The rest of us will join in to recite Kaddish and light our candles together. Someone please.
Yikadal v'yikadash shmei Rabbo, Yolmod yivroch yirasei, v'yamlich machasei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayek b'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agola v'zman kori v'yimaru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbo mevorach v'yolam u'meyomayo, yisborach v'yishtabach v'yishba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnasei, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei Kedusha b'richu. Le'ela minko b'chosa v'shirata, tush b'chosa v'netamasa, da'amiran v'yolma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'kol Yisrael, v'yimru amen. Aseh shalom v'ramah. Huya aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru amen.
I would now like to introduce Evelyn Rosen, a new resident to Gleneagles and a daughter of a Holocaust survivor. She was born Evelyn Tushender in Aberdeen, Maryland, in an Army hospital in 1952. Eventually, she and her family moved to Detroit, Michigan, where her last name was changed to Chandler to become more Americanized. Evelyn holds a BA in psychology and an MS in microbiology, as well as a certificate in computer information systems. Evelyn used that degree to give academic support to students with disabilities for over 20 years. Unfortunately, Evelyn's husband passed away several years ago, but together they raised 3 successful, brilliant children. Evelyn is also a master chess player. She has an incredible story and a film to show you. Sit back and relax. I hope you enjoy.
Let's see. All right. I don't know if you're going to enjoy the movie. You know, these movies are not always uplifting, but it's a very interesting story. Like this? Okay. I always knew that I was the daughter of a Holocaust survivor. Some of my earliest memories Okay, should I start all over? All right. Some of my earliest memories are of me sitting next to my father in front of the television on a Sunday night watching film clips from concentration camps during the Holocaust. I didn't realize until years later that my father was searching for his family among the fleeting pictures of the prisoners. Sadly, he never found any of them. Growing up, my father would share little stories with his children about his experiences during the war. I never had a sense of the chronological order of these stories, but I committed many of them to memory. In 1999, I started studying computer information systems at a local community college. On Sunday evenings, my father and I would sit in front of the computer searching the internet for survivors with our original last name, which was Tuchendler, or any survivors from his hometown, which was Neshelsk. We were never successful. My father would say that our search was hopeless. The Nazis wiped out his whole family worldwide. I always dreamed that one day my father would take me back to Poland with him to see his family's ancestral home. The opportunity came in August 2011 when my father announced that he would take my husband and I or my husband and me, to a hidden children conference in Warsaw. During this trip, I was like the paparazzi, trying to record all of my father's recollections and anecdotes. When we returned home, my daughter wanted me to let her legal assistant transform my movies and still photos into a video for the family. One night, her assistant sent me a link to a short film that someone had donated to the U.S. Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., that mentioned the name of my father's hometown, Nashelsk. I clicked on it and saw an old, grainy movie that someone's grandfather had taken in my father's town during the summer of 1938. Prosperous Americans returning to visit the town of their origin. I didn't recognize anyone or anything during the 3 minutes of footage. But the next day, my daughter and her husband, my daughter and my husband watched the same movie. After 35 seconds, my daughter recognized my father as a 13-year-old boy on the screen. The first thing my father said upon hearing about the discovery was, "Now you know I'm not from Mars." It was such a poignant thing to say. I never realized how alien he had felt in this American life versus his life in Nashelsk. The man that donated this film to the U.S. Holocaust Museum, Glenn Kurtz, turned out to be a published author who had never actually met his grandfather. He really knew nothing about the film. When my daughter contacted him to tell him that she had recognized her grandfather in the film and that he was still living and that he had a photographic memory, he couldn't wait to talk to my father. For over a year, Glenn called my father daily, grilling him on details about the movie, the life, and the people of the town. My father recognized several people in the film. In 2014, Glenn Kurtz published the book 3 Minutes in Poland, Discovering a Lost World in a 1938 family film. That's this book that I brought. With my father's memories and Glenn's tireless research, a timeline of events was created and long-lost people were brought back into memory. A film that had lived in a shoebox in Glenn's grandmother's closet for 70 years became the last piece of evidence that there had been a large Jewish presence in a town that no longer has one Jew living there. As a result of the book and a YouTube video that the U.S. Holocaust Museum posted online, my father has received phone calls and emails from people all over the world asking about their families and their histories. My father's memory goes back almost 100 years. He tells families about their grandparents and their great-grandparents. He has explained and translated documents and letters that people have had for decades, little bits of history that they could not comprehend. He has interpreted movies that the Nazis had taken during their casual tours of the Warsaw Ghetto. I always wanted to find a way to take away some of my father's pain from his terrible loss. The good that came from my daughter's discovery is that wonderful people have come into my father's life who have a connection to his town. They have become new mishpacha and are cherished by my family. In 2021, a Dutch filmmaker, Bianca Stichter, decided to make a movie about the discovery of the 3-minute film. She was haunted by the happy faces of all the people in the film, knowing that shortly after it was taken, most of them would be murdered. She wanted to prolong their existence. She turned 3 minutes into 1 hour and 7 minutes. She asked the viewer to keep looking. My father's voice is heard throughout the movie, He is one of the last witnesses that Jewish people existed in the town of Nishalsk. And that's the movie that you're going to see now. You're welcome. Thank you all. Thank you for joining us tonight. This, it's a very emotional thing to see, and I mean, the fact that these people are in memory now, their faces, I think is very special. I brought with me someone who, his mother was mentioned, Sura Kubel, and she lived 2 doors away from my father growing up, and because of Glenn Kurtz, we met Jerry, and it's just an amazing story. So, anyway.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you all for coming. May we be together again next year. And remember always, on your way out, can you please drop your candles in the box? Thank you.